This episode of MotoringBox is proudly supported by Century Batteries. Welcome back to MotoringBox. I'm Sean McKellar and today we are continuing on our journey with the Mitsubishi Magna Ralliart. So last week, if you tuned in, you'll know that we took a drive to pick up some interior parts for this car. And over the last couple of days, I've been having a bit of a play around with them. So as you would have seen in that video, the parts I picked up are not a perfect color match. But the really awesome thing about owning a Magna is there are lots of other people out there with Magnas who are super passionate about these cars. And one of them in particular was a gentleman by the name of Sean, just like me, who lived in regional Victoria. So I actually bought a couple of parts off Sean, and he gave me one really awesome tip. And that is, if you want to refinish any of the silver parts on your Magna Ralliart, he's got the perfect product to do it. So it is actually this VHT vinyl dye. So this is Silver Satin SP946, and this promises that it can do interior plastics like we've got here, but it can also do interiors like cloth seats and things like that. I'm not really sure if I would spray it onto cloth, even though it promises it can. But apparently for plastics, it is awesome, and what I've seen actually backs that up. So if you have a look at this top vent surround, which I purchased from Jamie last week, it is a charcoaly color, but if you compare it to this one, which I recently resprayed in silver, that looks absolutely fantastic. So we did cheat a little bit with this one. This vent surround was actually my original one, which was silver to begin with. But if you want to see how this VHT product performs, this radio surround was actually charcoal before, and now it's been sprayed with the VHT Silver Satin. I think it looks fantastic. It's almost a perfect match to the Ralliart stock standard silver. This top vent surround I've actually sanded back with some 2000 grit sandpaper, so super fine because there's not really any damage on it. I just wanted to sort of scuff it up a little bit. And then I used this poly pre-paint wash. So this is kind of a sugar soap, and it promises to be the last wash that you apply to the panel or whatever it is before you paint it. So I found with this stuff, the key seems to be to do a really light dusting first, and then you can progressively get heavier and heavier with your coats. But if we just give it a light dusting, you'll see that it's not changing color straight away. But again, I am no spray painter, and on this one, I probably could have prepped it a little bit better. There's a few spots where it looks like the paint's not really going on very evenly. But I'm actually going to use that other surround, so I'm just kind of showing you this one as a bit of an example. We'll layer on a few more coats. You will actually see some of those imperfections starting to disappear when you throw a few more layers of this product on. So with a piece like this, there are lots of little nooks and crevices which you need to kind of spin around to get to. And there is a little bit of an underhang or overhang, I guess you could say, on the top there, above where the clock and the warning light cluster is on the top. So we'll actually sit this aside for a few minutes, and I can show you one additional piece which I've sprayed. So this is the stock standard sort of lower portion of my Magna Ralliart center stack. And it actually has, you know, cigarette ashtray and cigarette lighter. I don't smoke, so these two items are pretty much useless to me. But I actually found a replacement piece, which I think was from a Magna VR, which was like the later model Magna in a certain spec, which just has a single cubby, which would be awesome for a phone. You could put like USB ports in the back of it. And this is actually a part which I've sprayed already with this product. Now, if you were going for a flawless finish, this is far from it, probably because I should have prepped it a little bit longer. But when it's going to be down there installed on the dash and you can barely even see it, it's going to be fine. So if we cut back to this part, it's starting to look really good. It still needs a lot of drying time. So it reckons on the can here that within an hour, it'll be dry enough to touch, and then after 7 days, it'll be fully cured. But this is all just a bit of a sideshow, a bit of an update, because today we're going to continue stripping out the dashboard. Let's go. Inside the car, I've got things underway. I've got the glove box out, got the whole center stack out, got the cluster out. We also have the headlining out because I'm going to get that reconditioned, refinished. But do you want to know one more horrible thing before we start this job? I actually still don't have any heater core connectors. The first one I ordered from Mitsubishi actually turned up broken, so I've got one of them which is good, but the other one's broken. So in response, I ordered a genuine set from Australian online car parts, and they actually haven't sent them, even though I ordered them over 2 weeks ago. So they're actually blaming Australia Post in that regard. They're just saying that for 2 weeks, Australia Post has not come to pick up their things. But usually when you order stuff online, they actually enter in a tracking code first, and that's a sign that it's actually been lodged in Australia Post system. They hadn't even done that, so I'm kind of stuck between Mitsubishi and Australian online car parts. Mitsubishi actually promised to send me a replacement connector, but considering who runs that place, I'm not even convinced I'm actually going to receive that. So I'm really forging ahead with this job in the knowledge that I've only got one brand new connector to put on, and we're potentially going to be reusing an existing one with a new O-ring. So not ideal, but when you're facing a situation like this where nobody's being helpful, as much as that sucks, you just have to roll with it. So yeah, let's just get into it. Alright guys, some good progress has been made. We've got the whole dash pad itself out of the car. So I'm guessing this airbox arrangement has to come out. It'll just be a matter of aircon lines and how far we can move things out of the way. I'm not really sure where all of that is, and I won't know until I start taking that apart. But yeah, the dash job itself is not too difficult. There were quite a few bolts, which I've kind of got a system here going to remember them. I do have the disassembly on video, which is going to help as well. And I did take a few key photos of where particular bolts went. A lot of the bolts are the same, but some of them which are different, I took photos of where those bolts went so I can remember to put them back in the right spot. So it shouldn't be too bad. With the column, I did remove the bolts from the outer mounting, but for the inner mounting, I just loosened them off a little bit. You can just see it right there. So they're still in, they're loose, and it's kind of sitting on the seat here, so it's supported. But it was just low enough that I could get the dash out over the top. Wow, we've got a parking ticket here for Launceston General Hospital from 2009. Whoever you are, I hope your trip to the hospital was fruitious and that you're all happy and healthy. All right, let's keep going. So here's a closer look. We've got the blower box out of the way. I was able to get in there and clean the aircon core out. It does look a little bit dirty in there, but it was a lot worse before. And as you can see, there are some spots here where I've taken bolts and nuts off the top. So this aircon evaporator box is a little bit loose, and this kind of ventilation box here is loose as well. So we just need to try and pull it out a bit because the core is right there. And you can see one of the little plastic connectors going through the firewall. There'll be a second one underneath, so it's just trying to get that out, which is all of the good times. So from what I can tell, everything here is loose. So it's just trying to get this box to come out, and there's something stopping it. So I've got the heater lines disconnected in the engine bay, and it does feel like this whole thing is free. So we just need to get this evaporator over a little bit, and hopefully we can pull this out far enough to get access. So let's just see how it goes. Okay, here we go. So there's our heater core. I've heard that it sort of slides out to the left and then you have to slide it back in. So it seems to me you've just got to get this box over to the right as far as you can. And then try and get this thing out. There we go, we're getting somewhere now. Just need to get it over a little bit more. Oh, look at that, we got it. But I don't know if I can actually get it up and out. Just need to get it to clear this box. Oh, it's so close. All right, there we go. We got it. Okay, here's our heater core, and one of the connectors is already snapped, so I can't reuse that one. So I'm going to have to, oh, they're Torx, great. So yes, I'll have to judge what I'm going to do about this situation. I've only got one good replacement connector, and I probably should have waited till I had two, but time is of the essence here, so I'm kind of working with what I've got. In hindsight, I probably should have called the local Mitsubishi dealer and see if they had any in stock, but chances are they probably don't. So the new kit does not come with any screws, so we're going to have to reuse these ones. So the question is, do I reuse this good connector, or this seemingly good connector, or do I try and plastic weld the one that broke? Both of them are risky endeavors when you think about it. So now we go from old to new. So this one is looking beautiful as you'd expect. It has a nice rubber or foam seal around the sides that it needs it. And yeah, it's all still sealed up obviously. So this is where we get to crunch time. What are we going to do about this situation, guys? So as far as the connectors that I'm going to use goes, I have a bit of a predicament. I've got one of them here, which is in good condition with a seal, so that'll be fine. But I sourced this whole kit from a company called Mitsubishi, otherwise known as Ralliart Automotive, run by a guy who absolutely hates me. I didn't know that at the time when I ordered it, but unfortunately for me, one of the connectors turned up broken. And why did this thing break? Well, actually have a look at this connector here. If you get up nice and close, you can see the walls of this connector are actually very inconsistent. The top there is at least double what that lower side is. And I'm guessing that's how it snapped, because it's just a shit quality product. So this kit was not cheap. As I mentioned, Mitsubishi, the seller, has not been helpful. So yeah, do I try and plastic weld this up, but bearing in mind how thin that wall is on one side? So just for shits and giggles, I might try and plastic weld this first and see how it goes. But if not, we're going to be using this old one, which is still structurally sound. It seems nice and strong, but the plastic here is definitely a little bit fatigued. So that would not be ideal. So it's one or the other, unfortunately, at this stage. See how I go with this. Now, I've actually plastic welded this, and I've added some additional plastic around the cracked area. It's not pretty, but it does feel very strong. So you know what? For the lulz, I'm just going to run with it. So we've got two brand new seals in there, but what I'm probably going to do is put a little bit of sealer around the outside. Now, this stuff is probably not the correct stuff to use, but it is a gasket maker and a sealant, and it is 100% silicon. In the end, if the seal does its job, then you won't really need this stuff. So we'll just slap some on there anyway, because why not? I'll put it outside the area where the rubber seal is going to go, just so it acts as a sort of backup seal. It won't be pretty, it'll all seep out the side when we torque this thing down, but yeah, I think it's worth doing, why not? And I did check the video to make sure this connector is going on the correct orientation, because that would be annoying to get back to the car and find out that you got it the wrong way around. I guess the last thing to think about is when you're reinstalling this, just be very careful of these plastic connectors. Make sure they're not touching or binding on anything when you're pushing it back through the firewall, past the aircon box there as well. But yeah, otherwise we should be good to go. Right, so here we are back in the car, and we need to gently feed this thing back down and get it back into its surrounding. We just got to get this little retainer bracket back on. I have had to plastic weld it. If it doesn't hold, I don't think it's the end of the world, but it would be nice to get it back on there. Yeah, I don't think this thing is going to hold. Oh, all right, it is on there. So I guess we have to grab or manhandle this whole thing back into place and pray that neither of those connectors actually break. Haha, got it. All right, so we should be able to start slapping some of these little nuts back on. But before I go too far, I'm going to try and connect some brand new heater hoses, because if either of those connectors break, we are up shit creek without a paddle. Okay, so we've got our old heater hoses out of the way, and we've got to try and slip our new ones on. So the logic here is I'm going to be using these little spring-loaded clamps for the ones that go onto the heater core plastic joiners, just because when you're tightening up the screw type ones, it is kind of introducing some torque, and I don't want to snap them. Just need a bit of lube of some sort. Right, sit rep guys, I had to get the camera out of the way, so unfortunately I didn't film it, but I have the heater hoses installed, and I'm not quite sure if they're the correct way around, whether that shorter one should have been on the top and vice versa. So we've got spring clamps on the two that go into the heater core, and then we've got those regular sort of screw type clamps on the other two which go to the block. So yeah, let me know in the comments below if I got that the right way around. They seem a little bit weird, but I think they're actually working pretty well. So fill this thing up with coolant. We did lose it a little bit, but we're probably not going to know if it worked or not until we get the dash reinstalled, which really sucks. This thing is going to get tap water until we know for sure we've fixed the problem. Let's just slam the rest of the water in here, shall we? She's thirsty. So I'm going to leave it there for today, guys. We've got the heater hoses reattached. Can't see any leaks yet, so we'll let the car sit for a while. The water level should be up over the heater core. The heater core should be full. So fingers crossed that little bogan plastic welded connector actually holds. I'm a little bit worried about it, and I am at peace with the fact that I might actually have to disassemble everything here and do it again if it breaks in the future, but I am slightly comforted in the fact that I don't think it's usually the connector itself that breaks, it's the little rubber O-ring which degrades. So it's got new O-rings, it's got sealant. I'm gonna let it sit for a while, and then hopefully next time you see this, we'll be reinstalling everything and getting everything nice and clean and refinished. But it's really interesting when you undertake a job like this. This looks like hell on earth when you're sort of looking at it from an outside view, but I kind of have a really good knowledge of how this all goes together now, and I'm hoping I can rely on that when it comes to the reassembly. So it's going to be great to get it all back together, and I do have some new parts to go in here as well to finish everything off nicely, along with the refinished console pieces which I showed you at the start of the video. So that'd be cool. So make sure you'll subscribe to the channel to come along for the ride for this. Christmas is coming up soon. It is the silly season, but it's going to be a good opportunity for me to get stuck into this and hopefully get the car roadworthy. So stick around. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good one. We'll see you next time.